Hello everyone. Can you hear me? Let me know in the chat if you can hear me. Great. Welcome everyone to day two of Become Job Ready and Web Development. So yesterday we talked about what we mean about being job ready. We talk about the different field and web development. We also talk about AI and also we start to mention about how to go and when choosing a specific field, doing exploration, research, and getting to know yourself. So today we will talk about web development fundamentals. Me put it in presentation mode. Okay. So today we're going to have two parts. The first part we will go over some concepts in terms of like what the basic you need to know for HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and web development. And then the second part will be about live coding. And I will invite everyone to also try and code and go as far as you can. And then you can have that as a project that you will continue to work on. So, so as I mentioned, the agenda for today, we will go over what is web development. We will talk about HTML, we will talk about CSS, and a little bit about JavaScript before we go into coding it on GitHub and Q&A at the end. So if there's new people that came today, so my name is Eli Paul. I'm a front-end engineer, web development educator and mentor. So I help developers to launch their own career and talk about how they started and talking about web development. I also do a webinar every week, every Thursday that teach about introduction to web development, teach about the basic concepts. I previously worked at IBM about 5 years as a software developer, and I also work at CUNY Tech Prep as a teacher assistant that teach college students to learn about web development and to help them prepare and help them land their first job. So before we start, I will remind you about the mentorship opportunity. After the bootcamp, during the bootcamp, you can sign up right now, and there's a discount available that I will post the link in the chat. There's a discount available for something. Let me see something. Uh, let me close that. Mhm. Okay, so going back here, can everyone see me and everything good? Okay, so going to post okay, going to post about the link for the mentorship program. If you are interested about it's going to be a 8 week one session where I go over what we're talking about in terms of like how to prepare and help you prepare for coding interview, going over also web development if you want more help in that, and help with resume and all of those other preparations. So those I kind of say. So if you want more help in terms of that, more guidance and also accountability in terms of like checking on what you've been doing on what you're working on. So that will be we'll go over that. Let me something that's okay. So that will be what we're gonna cover in the mentorship. And if you have any specific goal that in web development you want to accomplish also, I'm going to help with that. And if you have more question, I'm gonna send also the link to a calendar invite where we can you can book about 15 minutes we can talk about what more that I can help you with. So that way we can talk more and explain more about the mentorship program. Is there any question on that? Okay, if there's no question. Let's start for with today's bootcamp. Day two, we're talking about web development. I'm curious, what uh do you know or have you heard about web development?
What would you like to know?
Yes.
What would you like to know about web development?
So I asked a question. You can talk or let me know in the chat. What do you heard or what do you know about web development?
So, in the basic concepts of web development is the creation of a web page, but also trying to understand how traffic works and flows through that page itself. So, it can vary depending on whether it's e-commerce, meaning is there a way to exchange funds for services or goods,
Mhm.
or is it more just a platform to read and navigate, or is it a business web page? I think that's my understanding of the concepts.
Okay. So okay, currently taking a web app course. That's good. So when it comes to software development, and that's one of the reason I have a few definition of concept. We start with the internet. So the internet is a global system of connected computers and devices, and that's a simplified definition. What does mean? We have computers, we have different devices, we have phones, we have if we go to smarter things, we have cars, anything in your home, there's like those small devices. So those, all of those, and we have routers, and all of those devices are connected together, either via Wi-Fi or via wire. So this connection of everything connected together that allow to be able to share information, that's the internet. So now, when it come with that same type of connection, but we go about website and web application, that is that's where we have the web. So it's like different pages, website pages, different web application, different server, that different other data and information that's connected together. So that's the web. And we use the web all the time in terms of like where we go into our website, where we go into a web application that available on the cloud. So and then and the sense of like the discipline, the field that is creating those software that we use is software development. So software development is the discipline of solving problems. So that's the one thing about it. The first part is we solving a problem, we solving something, we trying to help someone or trying to make something easier. So there's a problem that's happening. So we solving it, we bringing a solution to it. And the tools and what we're using to do that is software. We either design and build in a software that's gonna be used to solve the problem or be used to make it easier. And web development is a part of software development, but there's different type of software. There's the software on your phone, there's the software on your computer, there's the software that you might not even think about on the like those medical tools that we use in, like, for example, the EKG machine, those are software, but it's a different type of software. And but the web development is like is doing software development, solving a problem, but we focus on building web-based software. So that's this is software that is on the web. And also that might be website. And to show the difference, there's when I talking about website, I mean you have a page that you can go to and see the text and see contact like a blog, and you can read and probably comment on that. I'm not sure if it go all the way to comment, but the comment is a level further. And web application, when we mean by application, then there's more functionality, there's more interaction. And for example, like Google is a web, you can see Google as a web application. There's interaction. We can see those social media pages as web application because there's a lot of interaction and a lot of data transfer. Based on what you do, you might see something else. So that's where we go into application. Is there any question on that part, or is that clear? Okay. So I will also mention a little bit about when you're talking about e-commerce and talking about businesses. Those are different type of solution that you can create. So if, for example, you have a product you want to sell online, you're thinking about, okay, one way to have to sell it online is having an e-commerce platform. So this is a type of solution, a type of platform where you can go and put your product on and people can go and buy it. So it is part of web development. It is kind of like this is the type of solution, the type of platform that's allowed to do that. Now, in web development, uh, even though you might see there's a lot of different tools, a lot of different programming language, and a lot of different frameworks, the base of foundation of it is three, I would say three tools: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Every other, that is when related to web. Because you in different other places, other software that might have other language that is meant. When it's related to web, especially to the browser and what you see, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is the foundation. So what is HTML? HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. And the hypertext is text, but it's composed of two different type of text. There's the normal text that you see, and there's the text that refer to other information, which is a link. So when you see a link, you click, it's gonna go to another resource, another information. So having the capacity, ability to have both normal text and hyperlink or link, that's what is considered as a hypertext. Markup language is a language that is being used to annotate. And what is mean by that? So for example, if I'm writing an essay, I know I have a introduction, I have a body, I have a conclusion. I might have one in the body, I might have two, three paragraph. So in this context, we learn it, we know about that structure. But if we add an exercise to tell me, okay, for each of those, let me annotate, let me note this is the introduction, this is the body, this is the first paragraph, this is the second. So I'm annotate, I'm taking the note which each section what it is. So that's what the markup language does. It's kind of like telling each section, okay, this is a paragraph, this is introduction, this is the body, this is the conclusion. So that's similar. So that's the reason that the reason they do that is most likely in the browser, not only help you, but it's also the browser gonna look at those to know how it gonna display what you create in HTML. So HTML is used to structure the web page, and it's also what have the content. And if you used to work on a framework and you see that you doing, for example, using React, you doing the content on the React itself, React will generate the HTML and put the content on HTML. So that's one of the reasons that is good to understand HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, because a lot of the newer tools and new framework, they they building on top of it. It is kind of, they will at the end, they have a part of it that create and generate the HTML that it needed, the CSS that it needed, and the JavaScript that it needed to be able to run. So talking about the browser, when you go to Chrome or Firefox or Safari or any other browser you're working on, it's gonna see the HTML file, it's gonna process it, analyze everything about it, and it create what we call a DOM. DOM stands for Document Object Model. So it's a model or structure that is created in order for it to display it so you can see every part of it, the HTML. So one of the reasons is create the DOMs, it make it easier for when you're using CSS and JavaScript to modify and change anything that is related to any content or any part of the HTML. And the DOM is also a JavaScript object, so also part of JavaScript. And when we go to HTML, what is HTML composed of? Let me show you a example of it. Let me open any page right here. So if I go in HTML, so you see there's different thing with brackets. So that's what we call tags. And here, this is let me use that example. This is a HTML element. So the HTML document is built of multiple HTML elements that is either nested or together, so it created. A HTML element have a opening tag, a closing tag, we call those part tag, and the content inside of it. So that's what make a HTML. And you will also see there's some HTML element that doesn't need content, they have just one tag. And inside of HTML element, we can have what we call attribute. So the attribute is what we see right here. So for example, the ID, the RSC, which is stand for source, those are called attributes. So it gives more information and it can either modify or add something to the HTML element itself. So for example, for this one is giving the information about where to the source, where to find the image and the size of the images. Is there any question about that for HTML? Okay, so let's go with CSS because we want to go quickly with the concept part and start coding. CSS stands for Cascading Styles Sheet. So it's basically a file, a sheet where you add different rules So that's why it says CSS is made of CSS rules, where you have different rules to tell about how you want this site to look. So the HTML is about structure and content. The CSS is about the look, the style, and animation. So how you want every element position and the page. That's what we talk about, the layout, the position of a button, the position of the form where it's gonna be, the styling of it when talking about which font, which color, and which background. So, and animation. Sometimes when you see a different animation in a page where you click, it become bigger, or it's something go up and down. All of those are animation about that we can do in CSS. And one of the thing I will say that a lot of people know about Tailwind or Bootstrap. And that's one of the reasons when we go about the concept of solving problems and making things easier. A lot of the frameworks like Bootstrap, Tailwind, and other framework is in either CSS or JavaScript or any programming language. The reason they are created is to make it easier and faster for you to do a few things that you can do yourself, but might take more time or might take a lot of things that you didn't consider. So for example, for CSS, there's different animation, there's different theme, there's different color changes, there's different color shade that different filtering option that you can do in CSS, but it might take a lot of more time for you to learn and or to realize what exactly you need to put as a value, as a property to do it that way. And Tailwind make it easier for you to just put a class value and it's gonna do it. So that's one of the reason I think is also good to understand the foundation, what it is, though that way you know why we needed to use this framework instead of another, and why it is useful, the framework is useful, what problem it solve, what it does make easier for you to do. So when we go about CSS, is a list of rules, and the CSS rules consist of a selector. By selector, we mean that there's we select HTML element. When we're using CSS, modifying, we adding rules to this HTML element. And the way to know which HTML element to change is using the selector. And we have a set of declaration. Declaration has properties and values. So if I show you an example of CSS, go to the style.css. So you can see I will go, for example, as the container. So this is a selector. It's starting with the dot telling me that it is a class, attribute class. And the value is container. So for the container, that's how I select the container. And if I go to the HTML itself, you can see here in the body, I have a class container. So I'm selecting the body element. And for the container, I have a list of declaration. So, and for each declaration, there's a property and there's a value, and each property does something different. So the display is telling how I want to display the container. So this is advanced in terms of like the CSS term we use in grid, and there's flex and there's other way to do display. But what I wanted to show is like how we doing a CSS is basically the structure of it. It's basically you have the selector, you have curly braces, and then you have a list of declaration where we have for each declaration there's a property and there's a value. Is there any question for this one? Okay. So JavaScript. A lot of time, I heard people and they talk to me about they start with HTML, they start with CSS, and it's going good. But once they get to JavaScript, they get lost. They not see what to do and all that. JavaScript is a programming language, and in W3C it gives the definition, the programming language for the web. The reason for that is most of the browser, most of everything about the web using JavaScript. Even most of the framework is based on JavaScript, and now they are working to use TypeScript. Even TypeScript, when you go to TypeScript, you're gonna see the definition of TypeScript is JavaScript with type. So a lot of the things related to web development involve JavaScript. So what does JavaScript allow you to do? It allows you to add interaction to the web application or website. It's allowed to add functionalities and to make it more dynamic. So for example, when you're creating a form in a website, you can add the button, or when you want to do something, you can add the button. But if you never have JavaScript, the button not gonna do anything. You will be able to click, but nothing gonna happen. In order to do something with the button, you have to use JavaScript to make the button do something. So the same thing about the browser. The same thing about the browser. For the browser, it's gonna get the script, JavaScript script, analyzes, processes, run it, and any update that need to be done on the HTML DOM or the CSS object model is gonna do it, is do the change. So yesterday we talked about being what it means to being job ready in terms of like uh not thinking, thank you, Steven, being job ready, the different fields and web development, AI, and how to go about which field you want to choose. And not being job ready doesn't mean that you 100% met the job requirement, but you're confident about your skill to be able to build and create and be able to talk about it and communicate and show what you can do. So the plan is for the bootcamp every day I have different things. Day one was about being job ready. Day two, which is today, is about creating a landing page, having web development, learning HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Day three, which is tomorrow, is about the coding interviews and how to prepare for that and all that. Day four, we will go about how to present yourself, resume, LinkedIn, networking. And day five, we will talk about what we can do to have a roadmap, uh, what we can do to have a roadmap, and to learn more and go in web development. Can you explain more about the second question?
I could easily ask. I mean, I'm asking, what are you trying to sell us? This is my biggest question. Sounds like you're going over a lot of stuff in 5 days.
Yeah. So basically, what in 5 days, what I'm doing, I'm going about the just studying about the process of being job ready in terms of like uh knowing your fundamentals, preparing for coding interviews, and presenting yourself. And if you want more of like help and those points, I do have a mentorship program available.
So you have a mentorship program. Okay.
Yes.
That's you selling mentorship. I got it. Thank you.
Okay, so for JavaScript, let's go back in a few minutes about about what JavaScript have. Me open the browser. So you can start with JavaScript right in the browser. If I open a tab and I have inspect and I see the console. So in JavaScript, I think the to start, because there's a lot to learn about JavaScript, to start, we will need to know a few things, which is that are the fundamentals, which what I put here. There's variables. So when we using the same element over and over, so for example, let's say that I have doing a simple calculation. Let me go to the browser. And I'm doing a simple calculation for, let's say, 5 plus 5 plus 2 is going to give me 7. So, but let's say I want to be able to use a number over and over. So, let's say for pi, in order to be able to use the same element over and over, that's where I will go about creating what we call a variable. And a variable is a place or a container that save that information so I can access it again. So if I'm using, let's say, let pi equal 3.1415. So this is saving the 3.1415 to a place in memory. So in this case, the browser memory local service, to a place in memory that I can access it again. So if I now press enter, anytime I'm using pi, it's gonna give me that number. So now if I'm using 5 times pi, it's gonna give me 5 times 3.1415. This is variable. And for then when we go for each variable or for each data, so because everything that we consider that we using as information is data, for each data, there's different type. So when we're talking about type, we're talking about what is used. So right now I'm using numbers. There's a type of numbers. If I can type off and a 5, it's telling me numbers. So when we're using text, this is a type of string. So there's a different, the popular type in JavaScript are string, number, Boolean, undefined, null, and object. So any text that's gonna consider as a type of string. So if I have the text right here, it's gonna say string. And Boolean is what we is something that have two value, either true or false. So if something is true, either true or false, that's what we call Boolean. And if I type the type of true, it's gonna give me Boolean. Now the undefined and null are two different value that different type that JavaScript to add to define something that is not there. I think the undefined, especially in terms of arrays, if you have some anti-array, or if you have something that might have like it's not there, it's not defined, it's called undefined. And there's also a null when it doesn't even exist. But there's a lot of when it takes some time to understand the difference, and there's a lot of time where some operation might give one or the other. That's why when we check in for something that is not there, we might use both of them, because depending on which operation that is going on, it might give one or the other when there's nothing. An object is also a data type that JavaScript use object as a data type when it's called to array, function, everything is because if you go in the infrastructure and the underlining of JavaScript, you will see that most of other concept like array, like function, like class, a map, JavaScript use the type of object for them. And you JavaScript and the underlying most of it, if not all of it, is object that is connected together, that is nested. That's pretty much does the JavaScript language. So do you need to open JavaScript now? Okay, yeah. So we will use GitHub right now to do the landing page. So let me see if we will use data structure. So data structure is we also gonna talk a lot more about data structure tomorrow, but not in terms of JavaScript, but in terms of coding interview. So in JavaScript, data structure is a way to organize, store, and maintain data in a way to access it easier. When we talk about data structure, we talk about array, we talk about object, we talk about map, we talk about set. And function is a set of instruction. When talking about set of instruction, a block of code that we create in order to be able to reuse it again. So let's start with the landing page is 1137. So let's go on GitHub. So if everybody can go on GitHub, we can start with the live coding. Let me know when you're on GitHub. So we will start by creating a repository. So when you open it on GitHub, if I go on github.com, and there's the top repository, there's new button. If you don't have any repository, you might see a button that have new in the book. So we will click on it and we're gonna create a repository. So let me give it a name. You can give it whichever name you want to. So landing page, bootcamp. It's optional to give a description, but if you want to know what it is about, that's where you add the description. We leave it public, and we add a readme. The reason I leave it public, if you want later on, we can use GitHub pages to deploy it on GitHub so people can access it and see it. And it is free to do that when it's on public. Add a readme file, anything that you write in the description, any page, lab, for the bootcamp. It will be on the readme, and the readme file is a file that is there to let people know what the project is about, anything, any information about it. Accessing GitHub. So if you haven't, the question is, have you created a GitHub account? So basically, if you go into GitHub page, it's gonna be here. If you have a GitHub account already, you sign in with your email and password. I'm using a key. Okay. Again, I have to change password here. So you sign in with your email and password. Okay, taking some time to changing the password and signing up. Okay, I'm back. Yes, you check the README file, and then when you have all of that, you just create repository. So this is gonna create this repository right here. So now when we have the repository, that's why I say to sign up for GitHub, and we can use CodeSpace. We can click on code, and there's the local. That's when you want to work on your computer, and there's CodeSpace. And when you go in CodeSpace, you can create CodeSpace on man, and it's gonna create a space and open a code editor where you can code. Taking that some time to load. While this is loading, let me open another repository where I've been working on. We can see what this look like for code space. Is everyone following? Uh, where is everyone at? Okay. Is opening the code space right now. Got a blank space. Yes, it does open VS Code in the browser. So if you have a blank space, try to reload the repository or open the repository in another tab and have it. So right now, yes, right now we can see only thing you have is the README. So we're gonna need to create three files, which you can see the file button right here next to the name. There's a new file button. And the three file will be index.html, style.css, and index.js. So those are the three files that is gonna need to create in order to do like the HTML and CSS and JavaScript. So if you want to see, so there's a next to the name of the repository, there's a icon, a paper icon with a plus sign, and that's where you click to create a new file. So give me a thumbs up if you done and creating those files. Okay. Okay. Okay, Alex, where are you right now? Are you still with the blank space?
Ellie, I let me describe what I have. Okay, I have this and say boot camp. I name it a boot camp, right? So in front of me right now is a boot camp code space on my left,
Mm-hmm.
blank space on the middle. On the bottom, it's a problems, output, debug, console, terminal, port.
Okay,
And
so
when you say open a new files, I don't know where those files are.
okay. So I understand. So I will go slower in terms of like when I want now at the top left. So you can see the double paper size logo.
Uh, uh, where is
Top
that?
top
Right,
left.
left, out, paper size.
So on the top left, there's a icon of double paper where if you put your mouse on it, it's gonna have
Uh,
Explorer.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
I see that now. Okay.
Mhm. So
Click on that.
now we can see the name of the repository right here next to it.
Bootcamp.
You can
That's
see
what I put as a name.
the name next to it. So when you put your mouse on the name, uh, when you put your mouse on the name, you can go straight and you can see next to the name, there's three or like four different icons. And there's one with a paper and a plus sign.
It's a New York space. So I click on the first one, correct?
Yeah, you click on the first one, it's gonna give you a blank space,
Mhm.
and that's where you type the name. So you can type index.html, and then you press enter, and it's gonna create the file.
I type index.
So index.html is the name for the HTML file. So,
Okay.
and when you press index.html and you press enter, and that will create the file.
Okay. I
Yeah.
did that. Good.
Yeah, so you do the same process for index.js and style.css.
Okay. I got that. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So when you click on the index.html, it's open a tab where you can see there's open child selection language. So we're gonna click in here so we can type the HTML file. So as we're using VS Code have a software, I have a plugin called Emmet that allow you to render most of the HTML with quicker. So so if I do a shift one or whichever one that have the exclamation point, and it's gonna show image abbreviation. So that abbreviation allow me to uh render most of it. So basically the first one, if I click on it, it's gonna render the structure for the HTML. So you see the doc tab, the HTML language, the head, and the body. So that way I can just change the title to, let's say, landing page. And we might need to have something in the body. So there's a tag called nav, which is used a lot for the navigation. If I use nav h1 and I put my name, so that's the start of the HTML. So right now, if I'm opening this in a browser, I will at least see my name. Me know if you have this part done, that way I can show the next step to be able to open it in a browser, because I want you to be able to see what you're doing, or any change you make, you can see it. Everyone able to do this, where you at right now? Okay. Okay. So next thing, so in the left, there's a icon with the cube sign. There's multiple cube sign. So I want you to, I'm gonna go to the process of installing an extension. An extension plugin or other software that integrated into VS Code that you can install that can help you to do a few things. There's multiple of them, but I will focus on one that we will use to be able to see the web page when we coding it. So we're gonna go to the extension, and it's gonna give you the search bar. It probably show other ones, but I want you to go into the search and type live server. And the first one, you see the live server, you can click on install. So entrust, publisher, and install. So that will install live server to the code space VS Code. So again, go into the extension, type in the live server on the search bar, and click on the live server and install it. Let me know if you are able to install live server. Uh, okay. So if you have live server installed, can go and the tab go back to the index.html and have do a right click and go on open with live server. And it's supposed to open a new tab, either show a message or open it. So if it showed a message and didn't open, you can click on open in browser and it's gonna open a new tab that will show you the HTML, how it's gonna show. Now you can see I have the title landing page and my name is showing up and the next tab. So give me a sign if you're able to do the step and having whatever you have in the HTML, if it's your name or something else, showing up in the browser. Okay. Okay. So I do have a question. I'm gonna add it to the chat. But before I add it to the chat, I want to show you what the goal is for today in terms of like the landing page because last night I did do it myself and like trying to like go about doing it faster. So uh let me open that with code space. I did it locally. And I wanted to ask, as it is 12 right now, if you are willing to stay and have it done, because I'm available for that if you are willing to stay and keep working on it and having a landing page done. But me install live server with quick in this one. Okay, I understand that. So showing the final result, let's see. Okay, so so this is the final what I was working on last time and showing how like it is in terms of like we have a title, we have the photo and the description. And in terms of JavaScript, we have a button that can change the theme. And we also have the form where you can fill out and get the information. So, okay, I'm coding off articles. Okay, yeah, I can keep working on it, have it recording, and me working on the landing page. And let me know anyone that is following with me if you want me to slow down and pause or just going straight into explaining and doing the code. Okay, so let's continue with it. So as we have the HTML, the live server install, when thinking about working on, thank you. When thinking about working on a landing page, a few things that we want to note is what are we using it for? So from that one, so for example, I'm thinking about using it for a newsletter. So let's me change the title to subscribe to a newsletter. And and then I can have in the navigation, I have the section about the brand. So we can have the section about the brand. That's where we're gonna have the logo. And for this part, we don't have we don't have a logo, but we have the name. So we can have the name as the brand. So, and as I'm thinking about also adding the change theme button, I can have the nav in the right of the nav bar. I have a button that's gonna have the change theme option. So when I put the button, I have the ID. The reason I put the ID is because I will refer to it back in the JavaScript itself. So before, as I'm doing that, let me add something to the head. The head have a lot of information about what the browser need in order to render. So for example, we need to link the CSS with we need to link the CSS with the HTML. So if I'm using Emmet, I can have linked at CSS is gonna render what I need for it, which is the style sheet and the CSS. And I also need to add the script for JavaScript. If I use the script colon src, and I can add the index.js for the JavaScript. And when we're using a script, we can decide to put it either in the head or in the bottom of the body. A lot of the time, if you is better to put it in the bottom of the body because we want to have all of the HTML and CSS load first before we run the script, because usually as soon as the browser see the script, is going to run it. But you can still keep it on the head and add differ, attribute differ. That's gonna let the browser know to run the script later after everything is being loaded. So this way I'm connected with the CSS and the JavaScript. So if I go in right now in my navigation, if I go open the page right now and I load it, you can see it is like we have the heliport and the change theme under the order. Is not like the navigation is in the final one. So in order to do it side by side, that's where we go about the layout and the style with CSS. Thank you. So in CSS, the first thing I want to do is what we call reset. Reset, when I'm resetting the HTML and the body. So the reason I do the resetting is because the different browser might have different default of styling, and if I want to change that, or if I want to have the same setting for all of the browser, I do the resetting. So the first thing I want to reset is the margin, which I put to 0, and the padding. So what are margin and padding? When if we do go in the browser and we click inspect and we go to the computed area, each element have a content that you can see those rectangle, it giving you the structure of CSS. Each element have a content. Between the element and the border of that element, there's what we call padding. And there's a border, and outside of the border, there's margin. So as I start in it, I want to the margin and the padding to 0. That way I can specify the margin and padding for the element itself or for the content of the body itself. And I also can decide what's gonna be the font size or the default font size and the line height, which is the space between each line. So I can put it 1.6. So now I want to work on putting those elements side by side, the name and the button. Uh, when I go to the HTML, I can see that there's I'm using the nav element. So to select it, I go with the as it is a HTML tag, I just type nav and I use the display. So using display flex. Display flex will take a HTML element that is blocked one under the other and put it side by side automatically. So now you can see that it is right now side by side, but it is crossed together. So now I can use justify content and use the value of space around. So it can give some space between them. So now you can see that I have the name at the left and the button on the right. So you can have some gap, some space, and also margin and anything. So now you can see the space between the button and here. Thank you. So right now I have the part for the navigation almost done in terms of the layout, the space. Let me add another section that I can call about the main section, which is gonna be having the information about the newsletter. So for that section, I want to have two parts. The part that have the description. So I'm using H2 for the title and the paragraph for the description. and also the part that have the form, which we use in the iStat. And those tags that have the name that are clear as section, article, they call semantic tag. We can use under the general, but it's better to use semantic when we go to accessibility. So, and inside of the outside, going to have a form where we will have a label. The label for the label, there's the attribute for, we tell which input is that label for. For this one, it's gonna be the first name, and then we're gonna have the first name in it. And we will have the input for, as the first name is a text, I need to specify the text is a text. And it's gonna have the ID first name, and that's the what connect with the label. It will also have place a name, a first name that is giving the name for when I'm getting JavaScript information from JavaScript, and 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 I can refer to that, and also the placeholder, which gonna be shown as like inside of the input and it's placed in order. So now you can see if I go to the page, I have a first name and a input, so I can enter. Do the same for email. We have the label for email. And we put the email. And for the email, we have an input, and the type will be email. So there's a different type of input. There's the email, there's phone, there's caller, there's email, there's number, there's caller, there's date, and there's submit, which is the button that we use per default for the form. So we're gonna have the ID email and the name email and the placeholder email. And the next input type is the button, the submit. And for the submit, we have the value. That's where we change the information that the button is showing. So subscribe now. That will be the value for that. So right now we can see that we have the input, the first name, the input, the email, and the subscribe now button. But let me add a class to it, class subscription, another class to the form also. The reason I'm adding class because we use mostly we use class in order to select and for the selected CSS. That way, if we are using the same style for different HTML element, we can just add the class to that element and keeping it consistent. So okay, so for the subscription form, if I go to the CSS and have that subscription dash form, and I put display flex and direction column, that will change the way it is. So right now, input is inline HTML. That's why everything I put, it becomes side by side. But when I change the display to the direction to color, is make everything one under the other. Let me see if there's something with the name that I give it. Let me will do HTML and see. Okay, let me do it directly to the form itself. Let me see. Do something with the something with the CSS. Let me check it. Oh, okay, so it's instead of direction, it is flex direction. Okay, so flex direction colon, it puts back to subscription form. Okay, so now it's one under the other. And right now, even though I have this article part is taking the entire space because the article is supposed to be on top of it. So let's say subscribe to my newsletter. And you can see it's on top of it. It's not side by side yet. So let me add the information about the description. Let me copy and paste it. So right now, if I check with the content, you can see that right now I have the title, I have the description, and everything is taking the entire pages, and everything is one under the other. So if I go right now, we have the class main for this part. So I'm using the main class, going to the star CSS and using main and use display flex. And by just doing that, it have them side by side, but there's no space between it. And the description take most of the space. So that's why we might need to add gap. We also might need to give a maximum width to the description part. So I'm adding the class description. So when I go to CSS and add the description, so as everything is inside of main, I can also nested the CSS rules. So I can add the description right here and have a maximum width of 50 dvh. Dvh is a unit where is dvw, where is looking for the viewport width. And by viewport, we mean the part that you see in the browser. So now you can see that the subscribe is half of it, and then the rest of the half is for the form itself. Now, if I continue to add the other stuff for it, we also have we're also gonna add margin and padding. Margin 10 pixel, padding 20 pixel, and give it some more space. And we might need to make the text bigger, the title bigger. So that's where I'm gonna go work on the H2 and have the font size, say 48 pixel. And the font weight 700. So the font size make it the text bigger and the font weight it make it bolder. So now you can see how this is more bigger and stronger in terms of like how it look. And we can do the same for the description, the paragraph. And we can put the font size also bigger. So now we can see how this part, the hero part, which usually in landing page, the part where we have the description, the pictures, and the form is called hero part. And we can see how it's look better and clearer about what it need to do. So that's where I'm talking about like the CSS is used for the layout, the style, and anything about related to animation and that. So let's still work on the layout and the style or everything look first before we go to the JavaScript part. So as the description looks better, let's work on the form. Are we gonna make the form to look? So let me copy that, cut that, and add it to the main. Add it next to the main as is also inside of the main. So for the subscription form, we already have the display flags and the direction column that make it everything under each other. So we can also add the gap so there's more space between those elements. And I want to add a border to it. So, and we can see what is the border gonna have, the solid, and for now, let's use flag. And we add margin, 20 pixel, and we also add padding, 20 pixel. For the display, let me see if I have the align items center. You see what it does. Because this is kind of like making it to put it at the center of the content, but we don't have a height for the main area, so that's why I want to can use the max height, uh the mean height. So for minimum height, we can use, let's say, a 70 dvh, which is dynamic view port height. And the dynamic part, the reason I use D as a dynamic part is because when it comes to mobile or phone, there is the browser might show the where you enter the link, the URL, and it might not consider that. So right now you see that is lower because I put the align item at the center, and I put the height to be bigger, so it's gonna be 70% of the viewport, 70% of that, and it put it at the center of that. So let's change the background color to let's try something and put a background color of yellow, and you can see what the main part cover and how it look. So yeah, yellow is too strong of a color. I will change the letter. Let me see. What about 10? Okay, more smaller. So now I can see what the body is. Probably might want to make it longer. Let me try with 78. Okay. So now you can see about the background color and everything, how it's start to look better and how everything is positioned. So I still need to work on the form itself and add some more layout and some more style to it. So in terms of the form, we have it. We can add a border radius of 10 pixels. The border radius change the corner of the form. You can see now those are round and not straight again. So that's what the border radius work on. And for the button, I might need to define a class for button. So if I have a class BTN and I add the style for the button, that way I can use it in both the button in the form and the button in the corner. So I can, to that, I can add the padding to be 20 pixel. So there's spaces between the text and the border of the button. The font size can be bigger, 20 pixel. The font weight can be 600, so it's bolder. And let's have a color of, for now, black. And the background color of white. We're using those values for now. And border radius 10 pixel. And you can see that with this, I can go to the HTML file and go to the button. I add a class of BTN that I created. And I do also the same in the input. I add the class BTN. So now you can see, now you see the button and the input button and the team are bigger, there's more space, and you can see the wall bolder. Now the next thing we can work on is the label and the input because it's really small. It doesn't change as those texts. So let's go back to CSS. And go to the subscription form and add the styling for label. So we have the label and we can change the font size to be 20 pixel. You can play around with like the different size and see how big or how small it is. So now you can see the label are bigger. And also work on the input. So if I want the input to look the same for all input, so after the nav, I can put the input value directly because the input is a HTML element, HTML tag. I don't need a dot or any other way to identify it. And for the input, I will add a font size 18 pixel. And also I can add a padding. So there's space between the letters and the border. So padding 10 pixel. And that way you can see right now that I can type and I can see better and there's space between the letters and the border. So the form itself look a bit better. So now let's add a last element to the HTML, which is the last section, which is the footer. So we can add the footer and add a text, a paragraph, and add the copyright, which is ampersand copy, and add your name or my name, the year. So if I go to the browser and see on the bottom on the left, I can see it. And yes. So here is the HTML code. Let me put this smaller. Here is the HTML code. So the HTML have three sections: the nav, the main section, and the footer. And what we've been working and adding to make it look better is the CSS. Is everything right with the HTML? Were you able to see everything and have everything so far? Okay, so this is about CSS. Okay, let's go on CSS. So this is what we have for CSS. We have this part is the reset part where we have the everything in the HTML body, the margin, the padding, the font size, and the line height to reset. This is a navigation in terms of how it display being one on the left side and another one on the right side. And you were talking about color, so depending on which part of the color, so there's the button that have a background color and color black, the text color. That's the style for the button. And we also have the main that have the background color of 10, the main section. So we have the HTML, the navigation, the input, the class for the button, and the main section where we have the display, the lamp, and the background color. I choose 10. You can choose another color if you want to. We have the description. That's the part on the left that talk about the subscribe and the form. That's the start for it. Let me know if there's anything more you want to see or if you see where you're at and catching up. Okay. Okay. So as working on the CSS, we also adding the element for the footer. Okay, so integrate the CSS with the HTML. Okay. Go into the index HTML. The line about the link where style sheet href. This is what linking the HTML with the CSS file. And anything that we using is we might use a class. When you see a definition on CSS that start with the that is referred to a class and the HTML. So in here you can see class equal this description. And you can see for here we have the that description to specify the style for this for the description part. So check if how the link is for CSS and check about your spelling or anything for the class? And are you referring it on CSS? Okay. So as I have the footer, so as I can show that right now we have this text on the bottom left. I can go to the CSS, let me add a class, footer. So I can use the footer class and CSS and add a display flex and use justify content center. So this you can see in the navigation and the you can see in the navigation I use space around, and in the footer I use center. So there's a difference between those two. So justify content, when you're using flex, depend on the direction of it, it allow you to align those when it is side by side, it allow you to allow those how we did align horizontally. So we have for space away, we have space before, space in the middle, space after. And for the center, we have everything in the center. You can see right now everything changed to the center. And you can see also here for the main I have align items. So that's what allow me to position this in the middle vertically. The reason I say depend on the direction is because in the form, you can see I use a flex direction column. When is in column, both the align items and the justify content also change direction. So that's mean if I have for the form that is column, if I have to change something vertically, it will be using the justify content. And if I have to change something horizontally, it will be using the align items. So those two are helping with positioning element either horizontally or vertically, but it's depend on the flex direction, which one is which. So right now you can see that I have the header, the navigation with my name and button. I have the footer, I have the subscribe and the form. So, but because I don't have anything related to JavaScript, if I can even click on the button. I can change what we call the pointer so it is a button. So let me change that. So if I use cursor, yeah, cursor pointer, you can see right now if I go now it's showing the hand. So I know it's a button, but if I press the button, it's not doing anything. That's where we need JavaScript. So if I put subscribe is reload because that's the default. That's the default action from the form. But if I want to do anything else functional, I need to add JavaScript. So let me do something about the form first. I want to add in the first name and the input, I want to add the attribute required. So that's the way I cannot just submit the form empty. So now if I put the required, I go to the form and I press anything, it's gonna tell me to fill out the form first. So let's go about JavaScript. So for JavaScript, we have what we call function. As I was saying, we're gonna talk about function. So a function is a list of code that instruction that we created in order to tell them what to do. So first thing first, we identify what we're gonna use. So right now we're gonna create the button to change the theme. And that I have a few things that involve with it. So the first thing that I might want to do is add in another attribute. Usually when we add custom attribute that we want to add ourselves, we start it with the word data. So let's say I have the data theme equal light. So in CSS, there is something that you can have what we call custom variable. And the way to define it is, so for this one, let's say I have a root. That is how you can define variable that is global. So now let's say I have a primary color. I start with the double dash primary color. That's how you do it. If you have a variable you want to define, that's gonna be the name of the variable, and after that it's gonna be the value. So for right now, I'm using black. I'm using white. As the default is light, I'm using white. Wait. The light is a white background and a black text. So I'm using black for the color of the text. And then for background color, I'm using white. So the same way I define those, I can define the theme. What's gonna be the color when it's dark? What's gonna be the color when it's light? So I go to the CSS. I have a bracket data theme. So equal, that's how you select. That's how you select based on attribute. So if you want to select an element based on the attribute, you use the square bracket and put the attribute and the result of that. And for this one, is the same, which is the primary color black and light. I copy and paste it. And for the other theme, which is dark, I inverse it. So I basically gonna have the primary color white, and the background color black. So now every place that I have color, so here we have a black and white. Instead of using the color itself, I use the variable. The way I use the variable, I start with var, parentheses, and inside of it, I put the primary color. And do the same for the background color. So everywhere I have the color white or black, I use the variable. So it's easier to change every places. So let me see, is there any other text? Okay, no, it's only there. It's easier to change in other places. Okay, so let me put it also in the HTML body. So that way is in the reset, we have the primary color, and then the background color. So you can see it still look the same because I didn't do any change. I just create a variable that can have the value. So the reason I do that is that way it's easier to when I'm changing the theme, it just switch the variables and everything else change. So now let's work on the changing theme button. So we want to be able to identify the button. We're gonna use the ID in the JavaScript. So I can have the let or const uh theme button. There's a when the browser create the DOM, the document object model, it also make it available so I can access it to the object in JavaScript called document. So I can document get element by ID. So I can pass the ID, which is change theme. Uh, change theme. So now that this variable have the button, so everything that is happening on HTML on the browser, it count as an event. If you click, if you type something, if you go over a button, all of that are an event. That's what the term for it in web development. So when I'm thinking about the button, so I can add a event listener. So it's basically here to wait and see anything that happens. So for this one, I want when you click on it, there's something happen. So in terms of function, you can define function when we what in a function in JavaScript. You can either use a call a function like that. We have a function, the name of the function, and everything else, parameters, and the block of instruction or the code, what it do inside of it. Or you can use what we call our function, where you just pass the parentheses and equal sign and the bracket. So that's form an arrow and do it and have the block inside of it. So that's two different way, two of the different way that we can call a function. So what we're gonna do with the theme button. So what we want to do, we want when we click on the button, the color change. It changed the theme. So instead of white in the background, it's become black. So that's mean I'm changing the CSS element of the HTML because I put the data theme and the HTML tag. So the way I can do that, I will have an element and get a query selector and get the HTML tag. So I have to put it inside of quotation. If I don't do that, it will consider it as a variable and it will look for that variable and it will not find it and give error. So from that element, I can get the theme, which is an attribute in the HTML. So I can get the element get attribute and pass the attribute, which is the data theme. And after that, I define the new theme. And there is in JavaScript what we call condition. And the condition is telling the if something happened, do this. If it's true, something is true, do this. And else, do that. So if the condition is true, that's kind of like what we're thinking about in terms of JavaScript. But JavaScript also have something called the ternary operator, which doing the same thing. It's basically checking the condition is true. So we use a question mark. When it's true, we do what is happening. Do this when it's true, and we have a colon and it do this when it's false. So that's what we're going to use to check for the light for the team. So we're gonna check if the team is light. It's gonna change the team to dark. And if it's not light, if it's dark, it's gonna change it to light. So if it's not light, it's gonna change it to light. And that way we can add the element, we can set the attribute to the new team. So the attribute data team, we specify which attribute we want to change, and we add the new team. So this is the function. So basically, in this variable, I get the button, and I add a event listener to wait and listen and see when the button is clicked, it does that. So that's when we call about a function is have a list of instruction or list of code to what it does. So right now, if I go in here and I click on change theme, we reload the page and see. Does not work. Do I have defer? Yeah, I do have defer. Oh yeah, I didn't put the quotation. So it was looking for a variable change theme instead of the text change theme. So now let's see if I press the button, it changed the theme to dark and white. And you can see as I press it, the theme is changing. That's where we talking about using JavaScript for functionalities. Is there any question? Because I know I've been going fast and going in terms of like doing it. So okay, there's no question. I will do the last part about okay. So this is the code for the JavaScript for the button itself. So the if else statement is an explanation I was saying about the condition, but in order to go with this part, which is the ternary operator, is similar to the if else, is having this, we checking for if this is equal with the question mark. If this is true, we do the first part before the colon, and if it's false, we do the second part. So I was using the if else statement to explain this operation, which is similar, but it's just done in one line. Yeah. So, I think the next part is the last part is the form, okay, the CSS. The CSS, what we did in the CSS, we define the root, which is the global variable. That's how we do custom variable in CSS. We define the root, have a primary color black and background color white. And we select attribute element. In order to select attribute, we have it in square bracket and the value. So we add in CSS style for when it's light. Those are the value of the primary color and background color. When it's dark, those are the value for the primary color and the background color. And everywhere we need those color, we add the var parentheses and the value of that color inside of it. So that's where we referring to those variable instead of the color directly. So we have it in the HTML and body. We also have it in the button. We also have it. Do we have it anywhere else? No, I think it's the body and the button. So that's way, anytime this switch happen from the light to dark, it changed those value. So I don't need to manually change the CSS for it. So the JavaScript itself is just changing the theme and then the CSS taking care of switching the color. Is everything clear? The main section. Okay. Yeah, the footer is just the copyright part, the L4 2025. Yeah. So let's do the last part about the form. So right now, if we enter something that's we don't it just reload, we don't see anything. So what I'm gonna work on is not sending it because that's will require a lot more work in terms of having a backend, but I'm gonna create a function where we can see what is actually getting from the form. And we can also send a show up alert or a message when someone fill out the form. So let's go to, so for the form, we have this, let's go to the JavaScript. So the same way we have a variable for the button, we can have one also for the form. So let's create a tons newsletter form. So I'm calling it like that. You can give it any name you want to. And I'm using the document tool, document that get element by ID. Let me check if the form itself has an ID. So in here, we don't have an ID for it. So I can add an ID and call it a subscription form and use that ID in the JavaScript to be able to identify the form. So this variable have the form element inside of it. So now I can do the same, but I'm adding an event to it, but I'm listening to something different. When I was working on the button, I was listening to the click, but for the form, I'm listening for submit. Anytime someone submit the form, and I can have it do something. So and here I'm using what we call a parameter E. So parameter E is short for event. So the reason I'm using that, you can see if I go to the page and I click, so let me enter something, and I click, is reload automatically. That's the default reaction in terms of like sending information and then reload. But if I want to do a lot more before sending the information, I need to prevent it to do that. So that's where like I can use the e dot prevent default. So that way, I can stop it from loading, reload the page, and do anything else I want to do. So for now, I just going to show the result and the console log, and then show a message. So that way I can create a variable. So say subscription data, and I'm gonna create a form data because a new form data because and pass the newsletter form because when the default tag or the default information, each input is a form data, is a data, and when you get a form is sending each of them separately as a data endpoint, which is gonna be the type of form data. So we create a form data to get the data from the newsletter when we fill it out. If we don't do it that way, it will ask us to check for each input and get those information from each input. But when we're using the form data, we get all of the input information at once. We don't need to check for each of them. And that way, we can have another variable where we change the data from form data to an object. So we have the object that form entries, and we pass in the subscription data that entries. So why we do that is that way it's easier to have a value that almost look like an object value that's gonna look almost like a JSON, where we're gonna have the uh a object like that, and we have the first name, value, and then last name value. So we're gonna have this format. It's easier to work with, manipulate, and do something when we have it that format in JavaScript. So now that we have the data, now we can actually do log it to the console. So that's what I'm doing right now. Console log and send a message about uh we received thank you for subscribing. So now we can see that, okay, if I'm sending the form, it's gonna get the information and then alert it. So if I had a backend or add something, another server that is getting the data, instead of log it, I will do a request to send those information. But we don't have that. We're just working on the front end landing page. So now if I do inspect and I go in the console, if I type anything, list might have error in the function instead of list, I have an extra R typo. Okay. So if I add anything, so I type and I type my information, it's gonna give it here. You can see the answer here, and we can see that thank you for subscribing. Is there any question? Let me go back to the code for this part, the newsletter. Okay, if there's no other question, so I say that's it for today. So we can add more to it, like instead of the color, adding an image and adding icons instead of having the change theme. But those are statistic charts, and you can look over either using Unsplash for the image. So that makes unsplash.com, where we can go and check for images that you can use and research images that you can use. And also there's a font awesome that we can go to check for the icon. And if you want to use any other type of font, and go to fonts.google.com, so that way you can choose different fonts and add it. And that's what I did for this, like using font awesome for the icon, using the image from Unsplash, and use a different font for font Google. So if leave it to you if you want to work more on it and make it look better and add even more to section to it. So today we went a lot longer, so we can go over creating a landing page. And going back to the presentation, is there any question? So if there's no question, I'm sending that in the email about preparing for tomorrow. There are two websites that I will like you to sign up to. So those are websites that are helpful for learning and practicing for coding interviews. I might also come with other resources, other websites that will help too when I'm talking tomorrow. So as I would say, early preparation, sign up for them. Don't worry about the payment plan. Just go with the free version. There's enough lesson, enough thing to practice within the free version of it. And coming back to the mentorship opportunity, like today we went a lot about web development, and if you want have a time to kind of like what you want to learn more and get better in web development, or if you want to prepare in all of the way that you need for the interview process, the job seeking process, and the getting a job in web development, and anything, any goal you have, personal goals, because depending on the situation, someone might need something more than the other, might need another way to look at it. So, and any help with resume interviews and more, I offer that. And it will be 8 weeks where we're gonna meet one-on-one and help accomplish your goals. So if you are interested, there's the link to apply and sign up for it. And also, if you want to talk more about it and like explain more and talking about different things about how the mentorship can help you, we also have you can also book a time with me where we can discuss about that via this link. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you for the ones that stay longer and follow with me about to create a landing page. And I hope that is not the first one and the only one, but we keep working and keep doing and keep practicing and keep learning. So have a great day, everyone, and I hope to see you tomorrow to go about the coding interview. Thank you. Yes, have a good day.